Okay, so for those of you who do remember like the little middle school sleepover parties that you used to do, you remember that later on in the night, someone would get the idea saying, hey, why don't we play one of those scary games? And in the back of your mind, you're like, oh crap. But you remember those games, whether it be light as a feather, stiff as a board, or the infamous hide and seek alone. All of these were fun, but nothing was as ambiguous and spooky as the Ouija board, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. So the things that I'm going to go over are what Ouija boards are, the origins and where they originated, and the fun stuff, the rules of a Ouija board and what not to do. So this is a Ouija board. As you can see, it has the full alphabet, and it is numbered from 0 to 9. And it does have yes, no, and goodbye. The goodbye is very important. But yeah, so it's actually made up of two parts. First the board, and then the actual planchette. This is the part that you use to actually interact with the spirit or whatever. So it's done by two people, preferably two, but you can do it with one person. But each person takes a side, and both of them just sort of move it around, or the spirit does, supposedly. Okay, so now that you know a little bit about what it is, I'm going to go into the origin of it. There we go. So, according to mentalfloss.com, Ouija boards predated back to the 1840s, when spirituality first began in the United States and was widely gaining popularity. Now, or not spiritualism was the religious belief that the dead could hold power and often had the inclination to speak to the living, often through seances, which is what you see here. At this time, performing a seance was a bit too problematic or a little bit too tedious, which is where the actual boards came in. Now, the early versions of the Ouija board were too complicated to use. Oftentimes, the actual planchette had a pencil attached to it where you can actually write out the messages, but those are often too muddled by human error to see what the spirit actually wrote. And it wasn't until the 1890s that the Ouija board was actually perfected by Elijah Bond, Charles Kennard, and William H.A. Maupin. Now, they connected the name Ouija, which is what one of them believed was the Egyptian word for good luck. It's not. It is actually a combination of the French and the German word for yes. So that's where the name was conned, and it was actually perfected. And it wasn't until 1991 that Hasbro actually got the patent and all of the rights for the Ouija board. So, which is why you can see it today in a lot of popular toy stores, which is why I saw it in Toys R Us one day and I was going, what? All right, now we're going to go to the fun stuff, the Ouija board rules. Now, the first rule is to always place a silver coin on the actual Ouija board itself when the session is starting. This is supposedly supposed to ward off any evil spirits, but mainly it's more to give the player peace of mind and to create a more fun and more enjoyable session experience. Another rule is that you must properly close the board when you are finished. When I showed the board up the front and it had the goodbye, you were always supposed to say goodbye, otherwise the session would continue. And that often led to a lot of hauntings. And lastly, if you want to get rid of a Ouija board, a lot of people think it's a good idea to burn it. You're not supposed to burn it. According to urban legend, if you burn it, the Ouija board screams. And anybody who hears that scream has less than 36 hours to live. So the proper way that you're supposed to dispose of it is break it into 7 pieces, I don't know why it's 7, and then douse it in holy water, and then you're supposed to bury it. It's very specific for some weird reason. Alright, so today I've covered what a Ouija board is, where it originated, and the fun little rules of a Ouija board. Now, it's a game and it's supposed to be fun, so don't take these too seriously. It's a plastic board after all. I don't think you'd summon the devil.
Yeah, Yeah, that's easy.
That's no.
And you can hit the picture mute. There you go, that's fine.
Properly shut down.
Yes, you didn't say
Get out
goodbye.
and done.
When you said that, I like looked at you. I was like,
Meant to check. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this, since Maddie was doing this make good on this. Cindy's supposed to do the oral evaluation and Daniel's supposed to do the written evaluation. Cindy, do you have some comments for Maddie?
Okay. I think the points were well stated in the beginning. Although I think more information could have been given, like when she mentioned it was like 3 men who, I think, what's it called? Like revised the vision board, like more information on how they thought how they did that, or like how that was organized, and what gave Hasbro how did Hasbro get the rights to reproduce it and like sell it in stores like that. I think it's just some parts were a little just broad, like the rules. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't really know much about it. I don't know if there's more rules or if there's different types of Ouija boards that have different rules or different spirits that you connect with that make different rules. I don't know. I guess just maybe more specifics. But I mean, technically, like the speech itself, like her voice and everything, was good.
Yeah, okay. I think I understand what you're talking about, because that's sort of one of the things that I'm hinting at here. There needs to be a little bit more explanation. I think you've taken it for granted that everybody has played with a Ouija board and knows what goes on, and I don't think everybody does. It's treated as an activity, I suppose, rather than a game. There's got to be some way in which you engage in this activity. I don't know how questions get chosen. I don't really know how they get answered, except that I see a yes and no on the board. You mentioned at one point that that the planchette had a pencil in it in the old days. I guess you would write out answers. I guess the idea on the Ouija board is that the planchette points to the letters that spell out answers to questions. I don't know if you have to ask questions or if answers just start coming in conversations from the spirit world. It's a little bit abstract, and I think what you could do is maybe use an illustration of a game or an experience that people had playing with the Ouija board to show us how how playing with the board might work. You know, what kinds of questions do people ask, and how do the questions get answered? And you say, you know, sometimes it's best to play with two people. Sometimes people play with one. Well, how does that work? You know, can I be playing with the Ouija board at home by myself, and do I have to come up with questions, or are the answers going to come and then I ask the questions? You know, I don't know that there's a set of rules or guidelines on this, but there's got to be some explanation, some illustration to make it a little bit clearer. You drop in some interesting trivia here and there. For instance, the idea that you might get the spirits following, or you know, the session's not going to be closed. I think you need to build up the idea that there's a lot of superstition involved with this. A lot of people see this as being connected to, you know, black magic and that kind of thing. And so, you know, if people were fearful, then they might find, you know, they have to make sure that they get out of the game in a particular way. Well, if you are fearful and suspicious, here's what advice comes from spiritualists who have written about this. I mean, the idea that you break it into 7 pieces and then bury it in the ground. Like you said, I don't know why 7 pieces, and I don't know either. I don't know where the idea came from that if you burn it, free the spirits or keep them following you. There's got to be some explanation of those stories. As it is, it feels like I've got half of a thing that's going on here instead of a whole thing, and there needs to be a little bit more clarity on that. I thought you did a nice job introducing the topic, setting up what your goals were. There's a pretty clear structure during the speech. The movement between the points is sometimes a little mechanical, and you want your transitions to be a little bit smoother. You don't want them just to be like the planchette is suddenly moving over here and then over there. You want it to be, you know, here's where we're going, and now, you know, we've talked about this, and now let's move over here, as opposed to 2, 3, 4. You know, it just feels, like I said, sometimes a little bit mechanical. All right, thank you.